Welcome to the space where we dare to dissect the most intricate mechanisms of the human psyche. If you have ever experienced the profound confusion of a great relationship suddenly met with a swift withdrawal, or felt an invisible magnetic pull toward people who seem perpetually out of reach, then you are standing at the threshold of one of attachment psychology's greatest riddles. Most people label avoidance as cold, selfish, or simply unwilling to commit, but that is a shallow surface judgment. The dynamic between the avoidant and the anxious is not one of opposites. It is a meticulously choreographed dance driven by primal fear and maintained by a singular, deep desire to be alone, but not lonely. Today, we are unlocking this psychological secret by revisiting a world-altering classic study, the cloth mother monkey experiment. Visualize this: a baby monkey, stripped of its mother, placed between a cold wire mother with milk and a soft, warm cloth mother that provided nothing else. What did the monkey choose? It clung to the cloth mother, refusing to let go, only visiting the wire mother when starvation set in. This haunting act is the perfect mirror for the avoidant soul. They do not fear intimacy. They fear that intimacy will be coupled with abandonment and pain. They are clinging to their own cloth mother, that is, control, independence, and safe distance. In this video, we are going to meticulously analyze how the avoidant uses this core mechanism to 1. Reroute the relationship, hitting the emotional pause button as soon as closeness reaches their internal alarm threshold. 2. Create psychological distance, employing 3 unconscious maneuvers to keep you close enough not to feel lonely, yet far enough not to get hurt. Sen. And most importantly, I will provide you with a decoding framework for these behaviors, empowering you to shift your role from passive recipient to active architect of healthy connection. This is not just a psychological lesson. This is a telescope into human nature. Subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and commit to watching until the very last minute, because the insight you gain today will not only illuminate your partner's actions, but will also liberate you from the cycle of toxic interaction. As we've established, avoidant behavior is not a random whim or simple coldness. It is a deeply programmed survival strategy. To truly grasp the avoidant mechanism, we must travel back in time to 1958, to the laboratory of Harry Harlow, a place where science dared to challenge the most fundamental beliefs about love and attachment. At that time, the scientific community, particularly behaviorist psychology, held firm to a chillingly mechanical theory: love was merely a survival transaction. The prevalent hypothesis was that a baby attaches to its mother primarily for food. The formula was simple: mother provides sustenance, milk. Sustenance equals survival. Therefore, attachment is a conditioned response to secure nutrition. This was a mechanistic view that completely bypassed the complexity of emotional depth. Harlow then stepped in with an experiment that was elegant yet heartbreaking, designed to test and ultimately shatter that hypothesis. He constructed 2 surrogate mothers for isolated baby monkeys. The wire mother was made of cold, rigid, bare steel, but it was fitted with a feeding bottle. This represented survival, nutrition, and love, as defined by the mechanical view of the time. Against this stood the cloth mother. This mother had no milk, no food. She was simply a soft, padded form covered in warm terry cloth, simulating contact comfort and a vague sense of safety. Harlow asked a simple question: when survival, wire, confronts comfort, cloth, which will the small heart choose? The results shook the very foundation of psychology. The baby monkeys spent the vast majority of their time, up to 17 to 18 hours a day, clinging desperately to the cloth mother. They only crawled to the wire mother when hunger became unbearable, fed quickly, and immediately returned to the soft fabric embrace. Contact comfort, as Harlow termed it, triumphed over basic physiological needs. The emotional needs surpassed the biological. Infant monkeys, and by extension humans, do not just need to be fed. They need softness, reassurance, and the guarantee that they are not alone. Now, let's connect this directly to the avoidant. The avoidant is, at their core, an individual still searching for their cloth mother. They grew up in an environment, often under an avoidant parenting style, where their emotional needs, the need to be soothed, to be comforted when scared, were met inconsistently or outright rejected. They were, in essence, provided with the wire mother, basic care, food, shelter, but denied the cloth mother, emotional attunement, deep empathy, in their formative years. As adults, their brain has learned a brutal lesson. Intimacy equals pain and abandonment. Thus, they have created a synthetic cloth mother within their own psyche, total self, sufficient independence. This is their ultimate safety system. They seek comfort in not needing anyone, in absolute control over closeness. When you, as an anxious partner, move closer and demand emotional connection, asking for the real cloth mother, you inadvertently trigger their primal fear. They are not afraid of you. They are afraid that this closeness will be withdrawn, just like the unreliable love they once experienced. This is precisely where we see the three unconscious maneuvers the avoidant uses to maintain their self-created cloth mother. These are the walls they erect, the shields they hold. Devaluation and fault-finding. As soon as the relationship becomes too intimate, often a few months in, the avoidant will begin to notice minor, irritating flaws in you, the way you chew, the way you talk, or how you plan a vacation. They start to pick fights or find fault unconsciously. The goal is not to change you, but to create an internal, undeniable reason to emotionally withdraw without guilt. The problem isn't that I fear intimacy. The problem is that she's just not quite right. This is how they maintain distance and control the perceived threat. 2. Absolute prioritization of work divided by hobbies. Work, passion projects, or personal hobbies suddenly become the non-negotiable, supreme priority. This is a safe, socially acceptable way to create barriers of time and space. When you complain about the lack of togetherness, they have a ready, rational explanation. I'm building my career. Are you not supportive? This inadvertently casts you as the villain hindering their independence, further solidifying their reason for withdrawal. The hot and cold technique and selective memory. They can be intensely warm and close one evening. The closeness briefly soothes the fear of loneliness. But the very next morning, they are distant, cold, or even ghosting texts. This is the classic switching behavior. When they reflect on the relationship, they tend to remember the stressful moments, the arguments, and selectively forget the intimate, happy time. This reinforces their belief that the relationship is bound to be hurtful and withdrawal is justified. Understanding the Harlow experiment means understanding that the avoidant is fighting a very old wound. They are not your adversary. They are prisoners of their own past. And only when we grasp this deep-seated craving for the cloth mother, the comfort they were denied, can we begin to shift how we interact with them and, more importantly, how we protect ourselves within the relationship. Our understanding of the cloth mother experiment, where the need for comfort and contact solace triumphed over basic survival, brings us to an undeniable truth. Avoidants are not unemotional people. They are individuals caught in a persistent internal conflict between a primal need for emotional security and the learned fear that intimacy will lead to damage or abandonment. This profound psychological struggle is most clearly and painfully manifested through two core behaviors that dominate all their romantic relationships. The first is the seek-then-push dynamic. Unconsciously, the avoidant seeks out a relationship, compellingly and magnetically drawn to those who can provide the adult version of the cloth mother, the connection, warmth, and emotional safety they have craved since childhood. This initial closeness soothes their loneliness and confirms their self-worth. This is the stage where they crawl toward their adult cloth mother. However, when the connection crosses a specific threshold, a promise of the future, cohabitation, or a deeply vulnerable conversation, their internal alarm system sounds loudly, danger. Dependency is forming, and dependency equals the risk of being controlled and hurt. Intimacy, once a refuge, instantly transforms into the perceived threat known as the threat of engulfment. This is the deep-seated fear of being dissolved, of losing personal boundaries, of surrendering the control they meticulously built up for self-protection. To regain their sense of control, their self-created cloth mother, which is autonomy, they must manufacture distance. The subsequent withdrawal, criticism, or sudden coldness is no longer the whim of someone who doesn't care. It is an unconscious act of survival triggered by old wounds. They begin to idealize past partners, the ghosting of exes, or find unacceptable flaws, fault-finding, in their current partner. By pushing you away, they generate emotional tension, and this tension is the goal. It ensures the relationship survives, avoiding total isolation, but remains at a safe distance, not close enough to strip away their autonomy. They keep the door perpetually ajar, but never wide enough for you to fully walk in. This ties in seamlessly with the second behavior, the fear of self-exposure. Recall the infant monkeys who needed to cling to the cloth mother when faced with a frightening object. Avoidants have their own scary object, and it is emotional vulnerability and the exposure of need. They learned in their earliest years that expressing need, pain, or any deep emotional vulnerability was an unacceptable risk, as it was often met with coldness, dismissal, or abandonment. They internalized a core belief: if I show you I need you, you will leave. They believe that if you see their vulnerable, unfinished core, you will withdraw. Therefore, they choose to withdraw first, the preemptive strike, to control the outcome. This is why avoidants often struggle to name and share their feelings. They use vague language, avoid emotional terms, and frequently divert the conversation toward logical or superficial topics. Instead of seeking reassurance from their partner, the natural behavior of someone with secure attachment, they attempt to self-soothe through emotional isolation. They believe self-reliance and self-regulation are the only safe paths. This behavior creates a tragic, self-sabotaging loop. They desperately crave to be fully seen and loved, the cloth mother, yet they refuse to offer their full selves to be seen. Their avoidance, in its essence, is not a rejection of you. It is a refusal to face their own internal fear and a rejection of the possibility that you could be the stable, comforting source, the true cloth mother, that differs from their unreliable past. They frequently employ an escape strategy during conflicts. When a discussion becomes too intense or emotionally charged, instead of facing and resolving it, they will abruptly shut down, go to sleep, or leave the room. This is the adult response using the coping mechanism of a child, which is to emotionally close off and wait for the perceived threat to pass. In their mind, maintaining self-regulation and emotional control is prioritized over relational problem-solving. Grasping the painful operation of these two mechanisms, seek then push and fear of exposure, is the crucial first step towards ceasing to personalize their withdrawal and beginning to act with deliberate intention. Their withdrawal does not speak to your worth, it speaks to their attachment history. But psychological enlightenment should never stop at empathy. It must lead to your empowerment. You cannot change their primal fear, but you can absolutely change how you respond to it. And it is this shift in your response that will ultimately break the toxic interaction cycle, leading to healing and a healthier attachment model for all involved. We have thoroughly dissected the seek-then-push dynamic and the fear of self-exposure, defense strategies born from the avoidance primal wound. Now, it is time to tackle two major questions that get to the very heart of the avoidant-anxious dynamic. Who becomes the cloth mother in the avoidance adult life? And why does this bond never fully break, no matter how hard they push you away, no matter how much they try to sever the connection? The answer may surprise you. So, who is the cloth mother for the avoidant in romantic relationships? The truth is, it's not a specific person, but rather a state of specific neurocompatibility. This is a concept far deeper than simple chemistry or shared interests. The avoidant, haunted by the fear of loss of control and abandonment, is always, and often unconsciously, searching for someone whose body signals emit safety, that is to say, activating the parasympathetic nervous system, even when their own emotional system is on high alert, sympathetic state. Their body and autonomic nervous system act like a mobile phone perpetually searching for a stable, reliable Wi-Fi signal. Most emotional connections they attempt to forge are dropped or experience latency, lega, creating discontinuity and reinforcing their belief that intimacy is unsafe. But when they find a strong, steady, non-intrusive signal, things connect easily. What does this psychological Wi-Fi signal, the person who can become the new cloth mother, consist of? We will build it using the neurocompatibility pyramid, composed of 3 stacking layers. At the base of the pyramid is calm consistency. This is the bedrock of all secure connection. For the avoidant, predictability is an absolute mandate. Unpredictability is chaos, and chaos triggers the physiological fight or flight response. This is why the common anxious partner reaction fails. When the avoidant partner withdraws, the reaction is anxiety, overreaction, pursuing, or flooding them with texts. These behaviors send a high-voltage signal, spiking the avoidance cortisol levels and reinforcing the toxic link between intimacy and danger. Their nervous system actually craves a very specific kind of consistency, someone who is present, predictable, but knows exactly when to back off and grant autonomy and space without disappearing. This consistency must be demonstrated through action, not just words. For example, if you say, "We will talk later," then you must follow through. A failure in consistency triggers their abandonment fear and high vigilance. This leads us to the middle layer of the pyramid, non-punitive distance. This is the hardest layer to achieve, but it's where the genuine neural reprogramming occurs. Most partners, when pushed away, react with unconscious punishment, the cold shoulder, guilt, tripping, or retaliatory withdrawal. These reactions confirm the avoidance core belief. I knew it. Intimacy leads to pain and punishment. But when you allow distance without chasing, without showing anger, without guilt-tripping them, and without using silence as a weapon, you are sending a completely new and contradictory physiological signal. The avoidance brain begins to associate withdrawal and return with calm, the parasympathetic state, rather than stress, the sympathetic state. Inconsistent partners make the Wi-Fi signal flicker and drop. Consistently respected space makes the signal strong and reliable. This is when they learn a new lesson. I can leave and return without being penalized, and my safety is not jeopardized. This is the window of opportunity for them to build a new, secure attachment blueprint. And at the highest layer, the apex of the pyramid, you have non-pressurized warmth. This is the highest expression of safety. It is not passionate, desperate love or smothering devotion. This is the expression of genuine affection, warmth, and unconditional acceptance that demands no immediate reciprocation. It is kindness without requiring time or emotion in return, presence without clinginess, care without cross-examination. For example, I see you're busy. I just want you to know I'm here if you need me. Instead of creating pressure for time or quality, you create safe space for voluntary closeness. This delicate balance creates physiological coherence. The heart rate, vocal tone, and even breathing patterns of the two individuals slowly begin to harmonize. When the avoidance nervous system senses warmth without any strings attached, they will begin to approach voluntarily because the fear of engulfment has been neutralized. They find their cloth mother in your accepting presence. Now, let's address the second question, the reason the bond is so hard to break. Intermittent intimacy and the addiction loop. No matter how far the avoidant pushes you, they keep an invisible tether. The reason is that the bond is maintained by sporadic, short bursts of closeness, a sudden warm text after a week of silence, an unexpected hug, or a rare moment of deep sharing. These surprising positive hits are registered in the anxious partner's brain as a massive reward, like gambling, known as variable ratio reinforcement, making it impossible for them to let go. For the avoidant, these moments help them soothe their loneliness, avoiding the wire mother, without having to commit to full-scale closeness. They keep you in the safe buffer zone, close enough to remain a familiar object in their nervous system, but far enough not to become a threat. This familiarity, however contradictory, is the safest version of attachment they know. They need your stable, non-demanding presence to maintain their fragile neuro-equilibrium. This understanding is your power. Chasing them is never effective. It only reinforces the old script. The only change that can break this cycle is not their action, but the change in your own consistent and calm response. Having completed the journey of decoding the neurocompatibility pyramid, and understanding that the avoidant seeks safety not through clinging but through non-pressurized consistency, we realize that chasing them is not only futile, but reinforces their primal fear and rejection script. This psychological enlightenment must lead to a revolutionary act of empowerment, and the first and most crucial action is choosing yourself first, because you cannot become the stable cloth mother for someone else if you lose your own sense of self in the spiral of waiting, anxiety, and desperate clinging. And this is where we enter the phase of proactive healing, where radical change begins within your own being, the affected partner. When you decide to let go, not letting go of the relationship, but letting go of the need to control their behavior and emotions, this decision embeds itself into the avoidance nervous system in the most profound way, marking a moment of emotional boundary reset they have never experienced. And this is a personal story of failure you must be willing to accept, failing to change them in order to succeed at changing yourself. Your withdrawal, your calmness, your respect for your own boundaries are the strongest, most stable Wi-Fi signals their nervous system has ever received, standing in stark contrast to the chaos they always associate with closeness. Because when you stop chasing, you remove the biggest threat to them, pressure and engulfment. And when you back off, they finally have the safe space to move forward, on their own pace and terms, without coercion. So, the critical question is, how do you know you are succeeding in becoming that stable, safe, cloth mother? There are specific signs you are the cloth mother, indicating that neural reprogramming is underway, albeit slowly, and perhaps not in a straight line. First, they return after silence, but with more substance. It's not just emotionless breadcrumbing meant only to keep you within their control, but they proactively reach out after a period of withdrawal. And the content includes a personal element, emotional sharing, or at least a brief, non-pressurized acknowledgement of their absence. And this is significant because they are seeking genuine solace, not just confirmation you are still available. Second, they share small vulnerabilities. They begin to share minor issues, worries unrelated directly to your relationship dynamics, which are crucial testing the waters attempts, where they check if you will react with judgment, clinginess, or an attempt to fix them. And your only effective response must be calm, non-demanding, non-judgmental acceptance, without attempting to take over their emotional space. Third, resistance without total severance. They still have moments of pushing back, which is a programmed defense reflex, but it's no longer a prolonged, total cutoff. They might emotionally withdraw for a few hours or a day instead of weeks, and they maintain basic communication, which is a sign their alarm system is being recalibrated and they no longer feel the need to burn the bridge completely. Fourth, they seek you when they are weak, not just when they are angry. This is the strongest indicator of a shift. In the past, when scared, they withdrew. But now, when faced with work stress, personal crisis, or emotional overload, they seek out your calm presence for self-soothing. Your tranquility becomes a trusted co-regulation source they are beginning to rely on. And fifth, they compare you positively to others, or express regret if they are dating or interacting with others. They will start to notice the stark difference in your calm, consistent, and low-pressure demeanor versus the other person's. Your stability becomes a safe reference point they unconsciously crave, and their expression of regret or acknowledgement of your consistency shows their brain is identifying you as the one, stable cloth mother. However, the bitter truth is that there is a major risk of getting trapped in this process that we must clearly warn the audience about. The anxious partner, controlled by intermittent intimacy, a powerful, scientifically proven addiction mechanism similar to gambling, often falls into the loop of waiting and self-loss, where you can spend months, even years, living in a state of waiting for their next return, adjusting your life, your emotions, and your self-worth based on their inconsistent behavior. And ultimately, you lose your sense of self, and your own exhaustion and insecurity begin to reinforce their reason to withdraw. To escape this trap and ensure you are reprogramming your own nervous system towards secure attachment, we need a clear distinction between the two partner roles you can embody, the tugboat and the lighthouse. The tugboat is the role of chasing and rescuing, whose core behavior is always pursuing, frantic texting, arguing to manufacture intimacy, reverse excitement, acting as the rescuer, trying to fix or fill the void of the avoidant, and the neural signal they emit is neediness, pressure, and dependency, activating the avoidant's sympathetic nervous system, spiking cortisol and adrenaline, and the result is the creation of reverse excitement and withdrawal, where the avoidant feels threatened, withdraws further, and reinforces the belief that closeness is dangerous, turning you into a source of stress rather than solace. Conversely, the lighthouse is the role of standing firm and illuminating, whose core behavior is standing firm on your own values and remaining unmovable, setting consistent, non-wavering boundaries, illuminating, being fully yourself, without trying to drag the ship to shore, and focusing energy on your personal life, career, and emotional stability. And the neural signal the lighthouse emits is calmness, self-possession, and low pressure, which allows the avoidant to feel safe enough to approach at their own pace. And the result is calm guidance, where the lighthouse teaches the avoidant that stability can exist without control, and the avoidant, once their internal fears are sufficiently soothed, will voluntarily seek your stable light for anchoring, making you the cloth mother because you are a non-demanding and non-withdrawing source of safety. From this, the universal psychological lesson for all of us is, true power and sustainable attraction lie in your own calmness, your own consistency, and your own self-respect. And to achieve the lighthouse state, you need to create an emotional still waters zone for yourself, which is the commitment not to allow someone else's inconsistent behavior to disrupt your internal peace. This requires setting calm boundaries when they withdraw. Tell yourself, I respect your need for space, non-punitive distance, and I respect my need for connection, self-respect. Then redirect your energy into your own life. Do not chase. Just hold the still waters of your own being, because boundaries are not for controlling them, but for protecting you and maintaining your consistency. It also requires consistency in self-soothing. Instead of seeking soothing from their return, focus on your ability to self-regulate. When anxiety hits, employ psychological techniques like anchor breathing or physical exercise to activate your own parasympathetic system, because you must become your own cloth mother before you can be stable for anyone else. And finally, redefining core worth, understand that their withdrawal is not a reflection of your value, but a reflection of their attachment history, and you deserve a relationship where closeness is a source of safety, not a continuous battle, where your happiness is not contingent upon their commitment. The healing process is not about waiting for the avoidant to change. It is about empowering yourself to choose safety for yourself, regardless of what they choose. When you consistently maintain stability, calmness, and low pressure, you accomplish two great things. You create the safe space for the avoidant to potentially move toward healthier attachment, and, more importantly, you create an unbreakable self-respect and love for yourself. This is the eternal cloth mother, the one who will never abandon you. We began this journey with Harry Harlow's monkey experiment, where science proved a fundamental truth: emotional solace triumphs over biological survival. From there, we dove into the psychology of the avoidant, individuals craving the cloth mother unconditional safety, but trapped by the neurocompatibility pyramid, pushing away all closeness for fear of losing the hard-won control. We clearly saw the difference between the tugboat that creates tension and the lighthouse that creates safety. The final and most powerful message is, the power to break this cycle lies entirely in your hands. The avoidance withdrawal is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their attachment history. Stop wasting precious time and energy chasing the tugboat and trying to rescue someone who does not want to be rescued. Instead, commit to becoming the lighthouse for yourself. Establish your unshakable emotional still waters zone, where your calmness, consistency, and self-respect are the guiding light. When you stop seeking external comfort and become the eternal cloth mother for yourself, you accomplish two things. First, you create the only safe environment where the avoidant can learn to approach healthy attachment. And second, more importantly, you build an unbreakable foundation of self-love and respect for your own life.